He was a divine stroke maker, a batsman blessed with class and skill. With more than 10,000 runs in both Test and One-Day cricket, Mahela Jayawardene is a modern great. But it wasn't just as batsman that he made an impact. As captain, he was one of the best in the business.
I think I wanted to win matches, simple as that. Well, I think it's about man management. For me, number one, I be their friend and then allow them to be leaders in their own right. You know, I'm a bit different to Arjuna because he was more of a authoritarian who wanted things done in a certain way, and we needed that at that time.
On the show today, we hear from a master tactician on his early influences, his methods, and his success as a leader of men. Mahela Jayawardene on the art of captaincy. This is the theme that we will explore over the course of this interview. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us about that, Mahela.
Pleasure, Gaurav.
I just want to begin by asking you about leadership. What's your overall sense on it? Is it something you're born to do, or can you actually learn to do it?
I think you need to learn to do it, and I feel on a cricket field, a leader is as good as the team. To be fair, I mean, I was quite blessed to have some talented cricketers. The time I took over the team, people like Chaminda Vas, Muthaiya Muralidharan, Kumar Sangakkara, the names goes on and on, Ajantha Mendis, who were impact players. So therefore, I think, my task became much easier. But I think as a leader, the important thing is, I feel, is that you observe things, what's around you, who do you have, the characters, understand who they are. I think those are the things that a good leader should learn to adapt.
Did you feel naturally like this was something that you would do as a young man? Captain teams, was that something that came naturally to sort of grow when you were growing up and starting to get into the game seriously?
I guess those kind of things naturally comes to you. I mean, when you want to play the game and you want to be as competitive as I was, I think automatically those things came my way, whether I like it or not. And it was a case that whether I want that responsibility and how am I going to grow with that responsibility was the challenge. I think, I've captained from under 13 onwards, all my school teams, and I guess when you are performing well and you are probably a bit better than the rest of your colleagues, it's a natural thing that a coach would give you the captaincy. But I think I grew into it in the sense that took responsibility, and I realized that, that I have to, fall in line and try and see how best I could, be a leader as well as perform out there, because that's the most important thing.
Have there been influences? Have there been things that have happened over the course of your career that have shaped your style of leadership?
Most certainly. I think, as a youngster, my first coach as an 8-year-old was a person called Mr. Lionel Mendes, who was a very strict disciplinarian, army background, but a very good cricketer. And a lot of discipline was, put into my younger days as a cricketer, how I dressed and how we walk and how we hold a bat, and it was just quite old school. I think that upbringing probably helped me when I started playing for my school, and I had some really good coaches. But I think, I made mistakes as a young leader, as a young cricketer. Probably few other things was, not turning up for practices on time and few other little things. But, when our coaches, pull you aside and give you a couple of warnings, and you realize that, this is a game with discipline, and that you have to fall in line. And I think those kind of things probably attributed towards my leadership later on.
Did you feel like you were a natural captain as a 13, 14-year-old? Is that something you really enjoyed and relished doing, accepted it?
The competitiveness of me probably got the better out of me. I think I wanted to win matches. Simple as that. You know, even if I play a game of football with my friends or do anything, I just naturally wanted to win. It wasn't the bad thing because it got the best out of me. I think when you're a captain as well, I think you always look you always look at ways how you could win a match.
Yeah.
So that competitiveness brought, you know, ideas and things I could do against certain players, and you know, getting others to get involved and, you know, do things differently. Those kind of things, you know, purely because I wanted to win matches. So I think that was one of the reasons that I've started thinking differently.
You've spoken in the past about the torment of losing your brother at a very young, I think you were 19 at the time. Did that change your perspective towards life, Mahela?
Quite a bit. I think that was a big episode in our lives, not just mine, but my parents as well. Because he played cricket with me. We grew up together. You know, we played in the same teams. He was my best friend, and to lose him at that stage, the treatment, obviously he died of a cancer, and the treatment took 2.5, 3 years, and it was a huge struggle for my parents, for myself, for my brother, and a lot of close relatives and friends, and to go through that at a younger age, and to realize that there's more to, you know, playing cricket and having all these things around you. There was more to it than that, because, you know, you lose your brother, and I've seen a lot of other families and other people go through the same scenarios, and we've spent a lot of time in hospitals, so it gives you a hard and fast look at life, and gives you a perspective of, you know, how lucky you are, and how you could be able to help others, and the priorities change in life at that time, and it was a very good lesson for me.
Is that something that even now is something you draw from in times of difficulty, looking back at that period in your life and how it shaped you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, nothing else matters after that, in the sense that what we went through, and for me to lose my brother, and for my parents to lose a son. I don't think, you know, that's, you cannot compare that to anything else happens in your life. You know, the press writing bad things about me, or whether I go through a bad period in form, or various other things. You know, for that particular moment, I probably think about it, but then I think, you know, it's not the end of the world. You know, so it gives me a better idea, and to calm myself down, and then just handle that situation in a better way.
You mentioned something very beautiful when you reflected on this in an article. You said you had to score his runs as well when you batted. Is that something that's always been at the back of your mind? Because he was a cricketer too, and an accomplished one.
Yeah, he was a very good cricketer, and then you know, my grandfather was the one, because he used to come and watch us play together at our junior ranks, and he was a huge cricket fan, and he wouldn't miss a match until he passed away. Obviously, he didn't see me playing for my country, but he would always, you know, whenever my brother gets a 50 or a 60, he always says he's a better player than me, and he's just teasing me. But that's something that always, you know, was embedded in my upbringings, and when I lost him, obviously, when I started playing for my country, I always used to carry a photograph of him, and you know, every time that you score runs and you've done well, you know, you say, you know, you want to tell him that you did well. So it was something special, and like I said, you know, so many things happened in my life which helped me to grow into a better person.
Now you're 17, 18, 19 years old. You're starting to emerge as a colossus. I believe you were a terror in school cricket with lots and lots of runs. But were there people and influencers who were starting to make an impression on you in the international game around Sri Lanka, people that you said you looked up to as batsmen as well as leader?
Well, I think growing up, I've watched a lot of cricket. My father, you know, always encouraged us to watch cricket, and you know, I grew up watching videos of Bradman, archive videos and few other, Sobers, and so many. Viv Richards have. He had a couple of collections, and up to date, he records all the cricket matches that I play and all that. He's a very strict, disciplined, cricket lover. So
better technology than video
yeah,
tapes,
no,
I'm
they had
assuming
those
now.
old tapes, and and he has to clean them up. He would sit and clean those tapes, make sure it doesn't get spoiled. So he encouraged us to watch good cricket, and I grew up watching all those people, and probably as a young Sri Lankan, as an 18, 19-year-old, Aravinda was probably the player that we all loved watching, because he had something different about the way he batted and how he carried himself. So I grew up watching Aravinda as a young kid, but at a younger age I realized that I cannot be any of those players. I can take a lot of good things from them to my game, and I can analyze it and see that, but I realized that I had to be the best I could be.
Let's talk more about the leadership aspect, because that's what we wanted to get you to reflect on more here. Arjuna Ranatunga is the one person who, besides yourself, is seen as the two most influential captains in Sri Lankan cricket, but very, very different people, you would say. How much of Arjuna, especially at that time when Sri Lanka were rising as a force, was an influence in the way you would have captained in later years?
A huge influence in a good way, and probably in a better way for me as well, because Arjuna was a very strong character, and I think Sri Lankan cricket needed someone like that, to be honest, at that time, because we were underachieving. We had the talent, but we did not have someone to show the direction and get everyone together and say, you're a good team. You don't have to bow down to others, but if you play as a group and as a team, you could achieve this. And he did it in a very, dictative manner, which I think Sri Lanka cricket needed that. And, away from administration, and, he picked the guys who he wanted to be in that team. Yeah. And he changed the dynamics of Sri Lankan cricket and the road that Sri Lanka cricket should take, building up to that World Cup. And I was lucky enough to play in the same club. I joined SSC when I was a 19, 20-year-old in 96 when I left school. And he was my first captain at SSC. So I had first-hand experience of how he led. And I remember my first class game, 2 days before he called me and said, we were practicing, he said, you're playing, but the only place you could bat is as an opener, because we had Asanka Gurusingh at 3, Mawana Tapattu, then Arjuna, and had a star-studded lineup. So I said, I'm happy to open the batting, wherever I could get a place in that lineup I'm happy. I'm just 20 years old. And my first game, we were playing Bloomfield, Sanath, Roshan, and all those guys. It's a huge rivalry. They left grass on the wicket because we had a very good pace attack. Nuwan Soisa, Pramodya Wickramasinghe, and we won the toss. I remember we put them into bat. They were bowled out for 165 on a very lively wicket at SSC, and I went in as an opening batsman, and I had a good partner in Aruna Gunawardene, who was an experienced campaigner. We put on 120 runs on that same day, and there was 3 overs to bat. I still remember I cut one Kalpaki, who was an off spinner, and got a fine edge and got caught behind. And I was 65 out of, I pretty much scored half the runs, and I'm thinking, wow, they scored 165. And we went and, put up a very good partnership, and I'm walking back into the pavilion, all smiles. And I remember the SSC, we have to climb up the back stairs going up. And Arjuna is always, it's a tradition that when he's in the dressing room, and if he's not going in, he's always in a towel and a T-shirt. So I'm climbing up the stairs, he comes out of the dressing room door, and he have a right go at me. And I was like smiling and coming up. I'm thinking like he came out to say well done, but he just gave me a proper rollicking. That I shouldn't be happy that I gave my wicket away in the last 3 overs, and that's not the way that you play international cricket. I just literally stood still for a few minutes, and I couldn't go up the stairs. Obviously, there was like another 6 or 7 steps to get onto the.
Yeah.
I just sat there and waited for about a good half an hour till the other guys came in, and then I went up, and that told me that we have to play cricket in a different way, and that's how he ran the ship. And it was a very good experience for me as a young cricketer. I don't endorse everything he did
Yeah.
as a captain, but I think there were a lot of good qualities.
Because it's been well known that not on every issue do you agree with him, and you've had disagreements on several aspects of Sri Lankan cricket. But just on the captaincy side of things, obviously you were a very different leader. But would you say that there were things Arjuna did as a tactician and as a leader that you imbibed in your work as captain?
No, definitely. I mean, the direction that he took, and showing the rest of the guys that that Sri Lanka was good enough, and that we should believe in our ability, and that we should encourage to play the actual natural Sri Lankan brand of cricket.
Yeah.
And he was very influential in that, and I think that's something that we carried forward, and the role he played in that, and the tactician. And I think, to be fair, Arjuna had some other good heads in his team, guys like Aravinda De Silva,
Yes.
Ashant Tilakaratne, Roshan Mahanam. All those guys were very shrewd, experienced players who had a lot of good ideas, and he took all that on board as well. So I think that helped him. So those are things that I, from a corner as a youngster, looked and learned.
Yeah.
I 100% agreed that the way he ran the show was what Sri Lankan cricket needed at that time.
The names you mentioned, besides Arjuna, Aravinda, Gurusena, all of these guys were part of that wonderful run in 1996. Here you are, a 20-year-old, watching your tiny island nation become world champions. What did that ignite in you, not just as a young player, but also as seeing what a leader can achieve with a group of committed men?
No, definitely that was a huge victory for Sri Lanka, and a huge belief for that team and for the next generation. And I was that next generation. I was 18-year-old. I remember playing my last big match on the day of the final. We literally finished our big match and then went home and watched the second half of our innings. The way they went about the entire tournament, and even after the World Cup, for about good 6 months, they dominated one-day cricket. So that was something wonderful for us to watch as youngsters.
Now that you look back on your term as international captain, what are your big learnings? Is it a lot about man management, or is it about tactics? Is there a percentage we can put to it from the outside about what it takes to be a successful international captain?
Well, I think it's about man management for me, number one, because the team will trust you more than a coach or anyone else. You have to understand who the personnel are. I think for me, I put a lot of emphasis on that. You need to understand the characters in that team and allow them to showcase what they've got.
Yeah.
Give them that freedom, but in a manner that you don't treat each and every individual differently, because there should be a set of rules to guide all these people. But at the same time, that they have that little bit of freedom to express themselves and to understand who they are. I mean, the background, the family backgrounds, what triggers them, how do they react to situations, and how can you get the best out of them. The only way you'll know all that is if you interact with them and if you be their friend and not as a captain at the top giving orders. Yeah. I have a different way of doing that. So that's why I said, I'm a bit different to Arjuna. Yes. Because he was more of a authoritarian who wanted things done in a certain way, and we needed that at that time. Yeah. But for me, I realized I could get the best out of the guys a different way. where I be their friend and then allow them to be leaders in their own right. Allow them to make decisions and back those decisions and tell them that they've done a good job. And even when they make mistakes, we sit down and have a discussion and tell them exactly. And they would like to know that from you rather than someone else or a selector or a coach. I think, because out there in the middle, it's us 11 and no one else. So it's important that they have that trust.
Since you mentioned man management, let's discuss some of the men that were part of this very successful team that you led. Kumar Sangakkara, obviously, because there was a personal side to that. There was friendship. Guys, you'd known each other for very long. You developed a close bond. Did that create its own difficulties sometimes in how you handled, for instance, it would have never come to having a situation where you would have had to drop him because he scored so many runs. But in terms of just the team environment, were there any difficulties because of the personal friendship?
Not really. I think, that's where we probably still are friends, because we don't say yes to everything. What the other person does. When Kumar was captain, I would always question certain decisions he made, and when I was captain, he would do the same. You need that kind of friends and that kind of people in your team. I allowed people to ask questions because that's when I would make better decisions as a captain. I allowed the youngest member of the team to ask questions because they might have a brilliant idea, and if you shut them down, you'll never know that.
Yeah.
So my theory on teamwork is about everyone talks, and everyone has to contribute. And I will pick things from them, and if nothing comes up, then I'll take responsibility. But whatever the decision I take out there, it's my decision. I take responsibility for that. It doesn't matter it came from a different person, but it's my decision once I made that call. So Kumar was fantastic in the sense that we had very honest, opinionative discussions on certain matters, and they were good for both of us. So that day itself, we had a chat with Mao, and when we got back to the hotel, sat face to face, and we had a very honest conversation and explained to him why he wasn't going to start the World Cup as the opening batsman.
How did that conversation go?
Well, I think he did not take it in the right way. It was so easy to work with someone like Murali. He's got a very defensive mindset as a bowler. He wants to,
So
take
this is
his
the
time.
most successful bowler in the history of the game, and you're telling us as his captain that he has a defensive mindset.
I was a different captain. I wanted to attack with Murali more.